My dad looked me straight in the face and said, "Boys inherit land, girls marry into it." That was the day I stopped being his daughter and started planning. Stay with me till the end, because what happened next changed my life, and maybe it'll change how you see things too. I was 34 when I went back home. Mom had passed away just 2 weeks earlier, and the house felt quiet in the worst kind of way. I thought I was going to help Dad sort through the papers, maybe figure out how to keep the farm running. Instead, over coffee one morning, he said it as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "The farm will go to Cody. He's the boy. That's how it works." I blinked. I thought he was joking. I said, "Dad, I worked this land for years, sun up to sundown, while Cody was off in California doing who knows what." He didn't flinch. "Girls don't inherit land. You'll marry someone who has his own." That sentence hit me like a slap. I didn't even know what to say. I packed my things that night and drove home in silence. My husband Mark tried to comfort me. "It's not worth it," he said. "Let it go." But how could I? I spent my childhood in those fields. I had dirt in my veins, calluses on my hands, and memories buried in every inch of that farm. So I started digging, not in the fields, but through the paperwork. Quietly, carefully. What I found made my heart race. The farm wasn't doing well. Not even close. It was in trouble. A big loan had been taken out against the property, and Dad was behind on payments. He hadn't told anyone, not even Cody, I guessed. And that's when something shifted inside me. Maybe he thought I didn't count, because I was a girl. Maybe he thought I'd just walk away. But I wasn't going to walk. I was going to take the steps no one expected. So I smiled politely when Dad called me with updates. I nodded when Mark told me to move on. But inside, I was already planning. Because if girls aren't meant to inherit land, maybe we're just meant to buy it back and make sure it's never taken from us again. The thing about my brother Cody is, he never worked a day in his life. Not on the farm. Not anywhere, really. And yet, somehow, he was always Dad's favorite. A few weeks after Dad told me I wasn't getting the land, we had a family dinner. It was supposed to be a quiet one, just me, Cody, and Dad. I had a sinking feeling in my gut the whole time. Dad spent most of the evening praising Cody. "He's got natural leadership," he said, while passing him the mashed potatoes. "He just sees the bigger picture." I nearly choked. Cody hadn't even set foot on the farm in years. When Mom got sick, I moved back home and ran everything, hiring workers, fixing fences, managing bills. Meanwhile, Cody was finding himself in California, first as a surfer, then as a DJ, then as a motivational speaker. He failed at all three. But still, Dad paid for his rent, sent him money, defended him at every turn. When I reminded Dad at dinner that I had worked the land for years, missed job opportunities, even postponed having my daughter just to help, he waved his hand. "That's just what daughters do," he said. I bit my tongue so hard I thought it would bleed. Later that night, I found Cody out back, smoking a cigar like he owned the place. "Hey," I said, "you really think it's fair? You haven't done anything here." He laughed like I'd told him a joke. "Come on, Em. You'll get a husband. I get the farm. Fair trade." That's when something inside me went ice cold. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at him and nodded slowly. Because in that moment, I understood exactly what I was dealing with. Dad had already made up his mind. Cody thought it was his by birthright. And no one, not even my husband, thought I had a claim. But I knew something they didn't. I had grit. I had history. I had knowledge of every crack in the barn, every root in the soil. I also had something else. The truth about the farm's finances. So I smiled, told Cody good luck, and walked away. He thought he'd won. But he didn't know I had already started making calls. Already found someone at the bank who remembered me. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was about worth. About every year I spent being invisible. And I was done being invisible. I didn't waste any more time arguing with my father or trying to make Cody see sense. They had both made it clear. I didn't count. Fine. But I wasn't going to walk away. I just had to play it smart. So, one weekday morning, I drove quietly to the local bank. No big announcements, no telling my husband, no sharing it with anyone. I needed answers, and I needed them alone. I asked to speak with Dana, the branch manager. She'd known our family since I was a kid. I used to hand out cookies at the holiday potluck the bank held every year. When I sat across from her now, I saw something in her eyes. She wasn't just a banker. She was someone who remembered the girl who worked through storms and sun, who watched me hold my mom's hand during her last days. I told her I wanted to understand the state of the farm's mortgage. Dana hesitated at first, said she wasn't supposed to share certain details. But I think she saw the determination in my face, the quiet exhaustion behind my eyes. Finally, she sighed and slid a folder toward me. "Emily," she said softly, "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know. Your father hasn't made a payment in months. The farm's loan is headed for foreclosure. He doesn't have much time left." I sat there, stunned. All the pride, all the talk about legacy, and yet, he was drowning. And Cody didn't even know. "Does he know?" I asked. Dana shook her head. Not yet, but the paperwork's moving. If someone doesn't step in, that land will be auctioned off within the next few months. That's when the plan started forming. I didn't need to argue or beg for respect. I just needed patience. And a little funding. I thanked Dana and left the bank with my heart pounding. That night, I made a phone call to a friend, Jason, an old classmate who now worked in private financing. He owed me a favor. Years ago, I'd vouched for him when others didn't. I don't want to stop the foreclosure, I said. I want to buy the land once it goes up for auction. Quietly, legally. He paused. You sure about this, Em? More than ever. We worked out the details over the next few weeks. Jason created a holding company, so my name wouldn't show up. Everything was lined up. All I had to do was keep my mouth shut. Pretend like nothing was happening. Let Dad and Cody keep believing I was out of the picture. The truth? I wasn't out. I was just waiting for the right moment to walk in and take back what I had already earned. It was the hottest day of the summer when I got the call. Your dad collapsed in the field, the neighbor said. Ambulance just took him. I dropped everything and rushed to the hospital, heart racing. No matter how angry I was, no matter what he'd said to me, he was still my father. I found him in a hospital bed, pale and hooked up to machines. The doctor said it was heat exhaustion, but at his age, it could have easily turned worse. When he opened his eyes and saw me, he gave a weak smile. Knew you'd come, he whispered. Of course I did. Then came the part that made my stomach twist. He grabbed my hand and said, Emily, promise me something. I nodded silently. Promise me you'll help Cody manage the farm. He's going to need guidance. I know you two don't always agree, but he's the future of this land. I smiled gently, lied through my teeth. Okay, Dad. I promise. What else could I say? I sat there holding his hand, feeling this strange mix of sadness and disbelief. Even now, after everything, after all the years I put in, after Mom's illness, after the dinners and the planting seasons and the late-night emergencies, he still believed in Cody. And Cody? He didn't even show up for hours. When he finally stumbled into the room, his shirt was wrinkled, and I could smell alcohol on him before he even spoke. Dad, he slurred. Heard you went down out there. You can't go dying before handing over my farm. My jaw clenched. Robert, weak but hopeful, tried to smile. Cody, you need to take this seriously. Cody waved him off. Relax, old man. I got it all handled. This place is mine. Emily's gonna help me, right? He smirked at me like it was a game. I said nothing, just looked at them both and nodded again. Let them talk. Let them dream. Because what they didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the paperwork was already in motion. The bank was preparing foreclosure documents. My financing was approved. The holding company was ready. In a few weeks, the land would be up for public auction. And I'd be the one standing there, holding the highest bid. Not Cody. Not Robert. Me. So I sat in that hospital room, listening to Cody's nonsense, watching my father believe in a fantasy, and stayed quiet. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the sound of a plan unfolding. And mine was just getting started. The foreclosure notice hit the town bulletin board like a bomb. Word spread fast. Gardner Farm up for auction. I watched my father's face when he read it. He stood there frozen, lips pressed tight, eyes scanning the paper like he was hoping to see a mistake. But there was no mistake. The land he refused to give me was now slipping right through his fingers. Cody, of course, threw a fit. This is rigged. It's the system. It's the banks. They're always after the small guy. But the truth was, Cody never lifted a finger to save it. He hadn't made a single payment or offered to help. He just stood there, yelling like the world owed him something. I kept my face neutral, acted just as shocked. Oh no, Dad, what are you going to do? He didn't answer. He just looked away. The auction was held at the courthouse 3 weeks later. I arrived early, blending into the crowd. No one noticed me. I wasn't bidding as Emily Gardner. I was bidding as Willow Creek Holdings, the name of the company Jason and I created just for this moment. The room filled slowly. Farmers, investors, curious neighbors, even a few men from out of town looking to flip land for profit. Robert and Cody walked in late, standing in the back. Cody looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot. He whispered something to Dad, probably promising he'd get the farm back. When the auctioneer stepped up, the room quieted. Lot 1, Gardner Family Farm, 135 acres. Bidding started. Low at first. Then it climbed. I raised my hand calmly, discreetly. No one paid me any mind. I was just another silent investor in the room. Cody tried to bid once. The auctioneer called it out. But when the price rose again, he looked to Dad, who shook his head. They didn't have the funds. They never did. I raised my hand again. Final call. Sold, the auctioneer shouted. To Willow Creek Holdings. I stood, walked to the front, and signed the papers. Quiet. Confident. No emotion. Behind me, I heard Robert gasp. Heard Cody curse. They didn't know it was me. Not yet. The deed was placed in my hand. I held it for just a moment longer than necessary. This was the same land where I scraped my knees as a kid, where I held my mother's hand in her last spring, where I'd worked until my fingers bled, only to be told I didn't belong. Now it was mine. I didn't look back, didn't speak. I just walked out with the papers in my hand, my head high, and my silence louder than anything I could have said. A few weeks passed after the auction. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just got to work, quietly. The first thing I did was change the old wooden sign by the gate. The one that said Gardner Family Farm, in faded red paint. I replaced it with a brand new one that read, Gardner Family Land, owned by E.G. Holding. I didn't need it to scream my name. The initials were enough. I wanted it to be clear that this land had a new owner, and it wasn't Cody. It didn't take long before word reached my father. One afternoon, Robert and Cody drove up to the property to collect some of their things. That's when they saw the new sign. According to the neighbors, Robert went pale. Cody shouted something like, "Who the hell is E.G. Holdings?" They jumped back in the truck and drove straight to the county clerk's office. I imagined it clearly, Dad slamming his hand on the counter, demanding answers. And he got them. My name. On the deed. Black and white. No confusion. No tricks. He didn't call. He didn't text. He just showed up. I was home alone when I heard the tires screech outside. I opened the door, and there he was, face red, eyes full of rage. "You bought it," he barked. "You bought my land?" I didn't flinch. I simply opened the door wider and said, "Come in." He stormed into the kitchen, pacing, shouting, calling me every word but daughter. I stayed calm, poured him a cup of coffee, sat down across from him. Then I looked him in the eyes and said, "Girls don't inherit land, remember?" He went quiet. I took a slow sip. "We buy it." He stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "You betrayed this family," he shouted. "You tricked us." "No," I said steady. "I played by the rules you believed in." He stormed out without another word. 10 minutes later, Cody called, furious. "Well, Sue, you lied to Dad, you manipulated the system." I let him yell, let him throw threats. Then I said, "You can try." But everything was legal. Every signature, every bid. Silence. That was the last time he called me. The truth had landed hard. They lost the farm, not to strangers, not to some bank, but to the daughter they never saw as good enough. I didn't take it to get even. I took it because it was already mine in every way that mattered. And now, finally, it was mine on paper too. The rumors started almost immediately. Cody didn't take the loss quietly. He went around town, telling anyone who'd listen that I stole the family land. Claimed I tricked our father while he was sick, lied to the bank, manipulated the system. He even called up distant cousins we hadn't spoken to in years, hoping someone, anyone, would take his side. Some people believed him. Small towns hold on to gossip like it's gospel. A few folks gave me cold looks at the grocery store. A couple stopped waving when they passed the farm, but most just watched. So I kept going. The land was in rough shape after all the years of neglect. I hired a small crew, people I trusted, and started clearing brush, repairing fences, fixing up the barn. Each morning I woke up sore, tired, and sometimes questioning everything. But then I'd look outside and see my daughter, Sadie, running barefoot through the fields, arms out like she was flying. She loved the farm instantly. I gave her a tiny patch of dirt to call her own, and one Saturday morning, we planted a young oak tree together. Her hands were covered in mud, her cheeks sunburnt, and she looked up at me and said, "Will this tree still be here when I grow up?" I smiled and told her, "One day this is all yours." That was the moment I knew. No matter what people said, no matter what Cody spread, I was building something real. But not everything was going smoothly. At home, Mark had changed. He was quieter, distant. He didn't like how obsessed I'd become with the land. He never signed up for this revenge mission, as he called it. "It's just a farm, Emily," he said one night over dinner. "You've already proved your point. What more do you want?" I couldn't explain it to him. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about legacy, about giving Sadie something that no one could take from her, the way it was taken. Still, I could feel the distance growing between us. There were nights I lay in bed wondering if I'd gone too far, if maybe I'd lost too much along the way. But then I'd wake up, walk out into the field, and see Sadie beside that little oak tree, watering it, talking to it, protecting it like it was already part of her. And I'd remember exactly why I did it all. Because some legacies aren't given. They're built. One seed, one sacrifice, one strong little girl at a time. Just when I thought things might finally settle, a thick envelope landed on my doorstep. Inside was a lawsuit. Cody was suing me. He accused me of fraud. Said I manipulated our father while he was sick, tricked the bank, and stole the farm out from under the family. My hands shook as I read it. It didn't surprise me. Cody never liked losing. But seeing it on paper, it still hurt. The weeks that followed were a blur of court dates, meetings with lawyers, and long nights filled with anxiety. I had done everything by the book, but fear has a way of making you question even your truth. At the first court hearing, Cody stood there like he was the wronged son of a fallen dynasty. His lawyer painted me as some cold-hearted daughter who preyed on an aging father for her own gain. I stayed quiet, calm. I had nothing to hide. Then came the part one hadn't expected. During discovery, my lawyer obtained access to old financial records, farm accounts, personal transfers, even some old bank statements I'd never seen before. What we found hit like a thunderclap. For years, Cody had been quietly taking money from the farm account. Not small amounts either. Thousands, some labeled as equipment repairs, others as consulting fees. The truth was, while I was out in the fields sweating and working, he was draining the very soil beneath us. When we presented the evidence in court, there was a hush. My father was called to testify. He looked smaller on the witness stand than I'd ever seen him. When asked if he had given Cody access to the farm account, he nodded slowly. Yes, he said. I trusted him. And did you know how much he was withdrawing? The lawyer asked. My father didn't speak at first. Then he whispered, No, I didn't. That was it. The entire case fell apart. The judge ruled in my favor. Cody's lawsuit was thrown out. But Cody? He couldn't handle the truth. He stood up in court and started yelling, calling me names, accusing the judge of being biased, slamming his fist on the table. Security had to remove him. I walked out of the courtroom victorious, legally undefeated. But emotionally, I was wrecked. I sat in my car in the courthouse parking lot, shaking. Tears fell before I even realized I was crying. This wasn't how I pictured justice. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like another scar. But after a while, I wiped my face, turned the key in the ignition, and drove back to the farm. Because no matter how messy it got, the land was still mine, and there was still work to do. The summer passed slowly, but the land came back to life. What once looked like forgotten soil now bloomed with color and promise. The fields were full again, rows of corn standing tall, the barn freshly painted, fences mended. For the first time in years, the farm was breathing. So I decided to celebrate. Nothing fancy, just a small harvest festival. A few food stands, some music, and a table filled with fresh corn, squash, and tomatoes. I invited the neighbors, the workers, and even the people who once doubted me. Sadie was the most excited. She wore a little straw hat and helped me set up early that morning. She stood by the corn table, proudly handing out ears to every person who walked by. People came. Not everyone, but more than I expected. And one by one, they stopped to talk. Place looks beautiful, Emma. You really turned it around. Your mama would be proud. Those words meant more than I could say. Some who once gave me cold stares now smiled. A few even stayed to help clean up. But there was one person missing. My father. I never truly expected him to show, but I couldn't help glancing at the road now and then. And then, just as the sun began to set, I saw a familiar truck parked way out near the edge of the field. He didn't come in. He just stood beside the truck, arms crossed, watching from a distance. He stayed there for a while, then quietly drove away. Later that night, after everything had been packed up and the farm was quiet again, I stepped outside and saw something on the porch. A small white envelope. No name. No note on the front. Inside was a photograph. It was me, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting on the old tractor with Mom behind me, her arms wrapped around Mom. Tucked in with the photo was a slip of paper with 5 simple words. I was wrong. Dad. That was it. No long letter. No apology speech. Just those words. I held the photo in my hand for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. I just felt still, because maybe that was the most he could give. And maybe it was enough. I placed the photo on the windowsill above the kitchen sink. Then I pulled on my boots, stepped back outside, and walked the fields under the stars. There was still so much work to do. But the land was strong again. And so was I. The sun was shining the day Sadie graduated. The whole town had shown up. Folding chairs lined across the high school lawn, camera flashes blinking, proud parents cheering. I sat in the front row, holding back tears. Not because she was leaving childhood behind, but because I knew exactly how far we'd come to get here. Sadie stepped onto the stage with her shoulders squared and her head high. She wore her cap a little crooked, just like she used to wear her bike helmet when she was little. When it was her turn to speak, she stood at the podium, took a breath, and looked out over the crowd. My mom once told me, she began, that we don't always get what we deserve. Sometimes we have to take it back for ourselves. I felt something shift in the air. She smiled and continued. There's a story behind the land I grew up on. A story about hard work, silence, and the strength to stand tall when everyone expects you to step aside. This land didn't just grow corn. It grew me. And every step I take from here on out will be rooted in it. The crowd clapped. Some stood. She closed her speech with one sentence that made me forget how to breathe. Girls don't inherit land unless they take it back. That line, my line, spoken through her voice, didn't just echo. It landed like truth. After the ceremony, we stood under the oak tree we had planted together all those years. It was tall now, thick and strong. I pulled a folded envelope from my purse and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "Open it." She did. Inside was the deed. Her name on it. "You're giving it to me?" she whispered. "No," I said gently. "I'm passing it forward. You already earned it, Sadie. The land is yours now." She didn't cry. Neither did I. We just stood there, two women in a long line of women before us, finally breaking the chain. Cody had disappeared years ago after the lawsuit, moved out of state, never spoke to us again. My father passed away the following winter. We never had a deep conversation after that envelope he left me, but maybe we didn't need to. Some truths speak loudest in silence. Now the fields stretch wide and golden. The barn stands strong. The farm isn't just surviving, it's blooming. And as I watch Sadie walk across the field, her fingers brushing against the tall corn like she's greeting an old friend, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. This land, once denied to me, now thrives under our care. It's hers now, and it always will be. What about you? Do you think Emily made the right choice taking the land into her own hands, or should she have forgiven and walked away? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment.